Hey everybody, this is Doug from Live in Memory. If I ask you to close your eyes and dream about a national park, what do you see? I'll guess that you're seeing forests and mountains, hills and rivers, canyons and all kinds of amazing rock formations. But how many of you are seeing places that are dark and eerie, cool and mysterious, and filled with incredible adventure? Well, on today's Live in Memory podcast road trip, we're going to visit a place filled with above and below ground memories. We're going to visit a place that is beautiful and mysterious, all wrapped up into one. We are headed to the heart of Kentucky to visit Mammoth Cave National Park. And we're so excited to have as our tour guide in today's podcast road trip, Molly Schroer, Management Analyst at Mammoth Cave National Park. Hey, Molly, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, Doug, thank you so much for having us on.
Well, this is so cool. I have to tell you, now, maybe I just have to kind of warn you at the very beginning here, that when I told my family I was going to be talking to you, they started peppering me with so many questions about Mammoth Cave National Park.
Oh, that's very understandable. I work in a very cool park. There's lots of neat stuff here. And anyone that comes here or finds out that I work for the National Park at Mammoth Cave, they always have lots of questions for me. So I'm ready for it.
We will do that. And I have to tell you, we've been there before. We actually been there a couple times. But even at that, we just want to ask so many questions because there's so many cool things about the park. And it's not just caves, but you've got this beautiful land above ground, too. It's really, you get two parks really into one.
You do, and that's the great thing about our park is the cave is just cool in itself. I mean, it is the world's longest cave. We've got over 412 miles of known passageways. But then on the surface, we've got these beautiful rivers. We've got the Green River and the Nolan River that are perfect for kayaking and canoeing. And we've got, over 85 miles of hiking trails in the park and equestrian trails where you can ride a horse. So there's just a lot happening on the surface and a lot happening underground.
And thank you for that because you just closed a couple of those questions already, which is pretty cool. We just made the list a little bit smaller, which is good. I got a long list here. And again, sorry about that, but my family is just so doggone excited. And I got to say this, over the years, we've taken our kids to a lot of different parks. This one park, Mammoth Cave, to me is one of the best parks that we've been to that is for the whole family. Young and old alike feel like adventurers when you go to Mammoth Cave.
You do, and because there are a lot for all different interest groups, age groups, and, there's something about going underground and going on a cave tour that just gets people excited. They get excited. It's the unknown. It's something you've never maybe done before, and especially for kids, the dark hole in the ground. What's in there? What's it like? Will there be a bat? What's it feel like down there? How far underground am I? There's just all these questions and excitement that goes on, and we see that all the time with our tour groups that are going in there. They're very excited to go in there, and it makes it fun to be a tour guide at the cave and work here and get to interact with our visitors.
Thanks for explaining it that way, because you brought a memory to mind. I remember when we were going through the cave, and my son may have been like 6, 7 years old, something like that. And throughout the trip, I was holding his hand. And there were some times he was really just gripping my hand as we're going into some dark spot and that. But then there's other times he wanted to let go because he wanted to get in there and start exploring, investigating what was all around him, which is just so doggone cool.
Yeah, there is that curiosity of what's in there, but it's also got a little bit of scariness especially for the younger kids, because it is dark. It's a cave. We have it lit with lights, but there's only so many ways you can light a cave for them. But they're very curious, and they ask lots of great questions, and our guides that take the groups through the cave are very knowledgeable, and they love to answer questions, and they love to just tell the history and the geology and everything that is Mammoth Cave.
You got it. So where is Mammoth Cave National Park?
Well, we are in south central Kentucky. We are around 2 hours south of Louisville and about an hour and a half north of Nashville, Tennessee, right on Interstate 65. So we're at a big thoroughfare. A lot of people use that interstate to travel north and south across the country. And we are right off one of the exchanges. You can get off and visit Mammoth Cave. So we're in a pretty busy part of the country, not a far drive from most areas of the East Coast if anybody was wanting to come here.
And that's the cool thing about Mammoth Cave is that you don't have to go far to live a new memory. And a place like Mammoth Cave, like you just said, is so close to so many people in the country that it's 5-6 hour car ride at most and not that far away.
Yeah, we're very easy to get to. We have a lot of people that plan to come to the park. It's a destination. They're trying to hit to the national parks, and they plan their visit. But We do have a number of people that just are driving down the interstate. They see the big brown national park sign that we have displayed at different places across the country, and they're like, I didn't know there was a national park here, and they pull right in and come to our visitor center. So we get a little bit of both, but it is a good place to come as a destination because you can really plan out a few days. You could do cave tours, as I said before, or there's the surface activities you can take advantage of also. So we're happy to welcome people and hope they come and visit our area.
So what's the history of the park? And I suppose there's two histories. There's the history of recent explorers that found the park or, found the caves. But humans have been visiting the cave for a long time, right? I mean, it's not just like the past couple hundred years.
Yes, the history of Mammoth Cave to me is one of the most interesting parts. I like people, I like their backgrounds, I like, the variety of people that are out there in the world. And our history, if you really want to go to where people first started coming into Mammoth Cave, you're going to go 4,000 to 5,000 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Early Native Americans, prehistoric Americans, we find evidence that they did explore Mammoth Cave. They went for miles in the cave using reed torches as their light. They had woven shoes, kind of slippers that they wore to get around through the cave. And they went really far. I mean, they were some major explorers that were taking place and went really far in the passageways. We find these reed torches that they've lost. We find their shoes that they left. They were gathering a mineral called gypsum. It grows naturally. It kind of seeps out of the wall. Gypsum nowadays, you might think of it in drywall. I've also heard it as an ingredient in Twinkies. It is a preservative, but they would but they would scrape this mineral off the wall and gather it, and they went miles to collect that into the cave. Now, what they were using the gypsum for, we're not really sure. There's theories. It could have been used for something for dietary purposes. It could have been used as a preservative. As I mentioned before, it could have been almost a rite of passage to go down into the cave and gather some of this gypsum as part of their culture.
Sure.
So there's lots of theories of what it could be, but we really don't know for sure. But we just know that they went really far into the cave. And so they were the first explorers of Mammoth Cave. Now, modern man, they started coming into the cave at late 1700s, about 1800, if you want to get to where we know that they were in the cave. So 1800 was the first modern man, rediscovered Mammoth Cave, if you will.
Right.
And so they came in. That's when we have our first recorded history of it. The landowners of that area, the old tale is that John Houchin, who was the man that owned that area, was out bear hunting. He shot a bear and then chased it into the mouth of Mammoth Cave, and that's how he discovered it. So that is a legend. That's what we like to tell people, of that was the rediscovery of Mammoth Cave. And then from then, it just kept going on and on, the use of the cave. They used it as a saltpeter mining operation in the early 1800s. It was actually integral in the War of 1812. A lot of the saltpeter that was mined out of Mammoth Cave was used to create black gunpowder.
Oh, no
which
kidding.
Was used during that War of 1812. Yeah, so Mammoth Cave helped to kind of re-win our freedom and our independence during that war.
That's just an awesome history. Those are tidbits like that. That is just so cool.
And so that saltpeter mining operation you can actually see on one of our tours. It's from the early 1800s, and it is still original and still standing on our historic route. You can see the wooden beams that were down there, the filtering pits that they used to filter the saltpeter out of the dirt from the cave. So, a lot of that history is still visible, and we still talk about it all the time on our tours because it's such a big part of the cave.
So when did it become a national park? When did that happen?
Well, and so right after that saltpeter mining, that kind of, as they say, petered out. That no longer was making money as an operation. So they came up with this wonderful idea and to actually charge people to go into the cave on a tour. And shockingly, people actually do that. They want to come in the cave. So in 1816, the first cave tours began. So over 200 years, Mammoth Cave has been giving cave tours in the park. Now, in 1930s, a group came together and decided that this would be a great national park. And they started that momentum to designate Mammoth Cave. And in 1941, we were actually designated as a national park.
And if I read it correctly, you're also a UNESCO site, World Heritage Site?
We are. We're a World Heritage Site and an International Biosphere Reserve. So our park has been recognized internationally for the cultural heritage we have here and the outstanding cave and karst ecosystem that is representative. It's world-renowned here. People come from all over to study the geology of this area and of Mammoth Cave.
Oh, wow. So you had mentioned it's the largest cave system in the world. How large is it? How do you measure a cave, in miles, or how do you do that?
So we're technically the longest cave.
Okay, the longest. Okay.
So there are some that are large, have big passages, but we are the longest. So
okay.
We're currently mapped at 412 miles. So that's by miles. People actually have to go in and pass through the passageways, and they take very intricate surveys and details of how these passageways look. Now, we are still finding more caves. It is no end in sight at this point. We have a group of very dedicated volunteers, the National Geological Society, the Cave Research Foundation. They actually come to the park as volunteers on holiday weekends, on any chance they get, and they map the cave. They go to new areas and they continue mapping it for us. So while you're home eating your Thanksgiving dinner or celebrating 4th of July, you can bet there are people within Mammoth Cave mapping it out.
Oh, that is so cool. So how were the caves formed?
So Mammoth Cave is an area of limestone. So the cave's a limestone cave. And millions of years ago, this limestone area began to get water seeping through. And the water would drip through just a little bit at a time, make its way through cracks to get down to the water table, so many hundreds of feet below us.
Right.
Well, as that water travels through those cracks, it was slowly eroding out the passages and making them larger and larger. And it all also had to do with the Green River that was out on the surface. That Green River was flowing, and as that Green River would drop and cut through the hillside and move down, so would the water table. So it would just kept going lower and lower. Well, as those upper passages that formed from water would be void of water, then we'd get cave. And it just kept dropping down and down and down. We actually have 5 levels of cave right now. The top level would be the oldest that was carved out many millions of years ago. And the lowest level, level 5, is where we actually still have water. There you can find rivers of water flowing through the bottom of the cave. And that's as low as a person can go without going diving underwater.
We went on, I think it was called the Historic Tour, and we could talk about the tours in a few minutes. I do remember at one point there was a vantage point where you can see some flowing water, and they were talking about that. So that's so cool. I didn't realize it was 5 levels in the cave.
Yeah, you can get down there as you're, on the different tours. The Historic does go pretty low. It's right near one of those river areas, and we have another tour you can take that actually goes and looks at some of those river passages, because people are very interested in seeing the water at the lowest part.
Oh, that is absolutely awesome. So why don't we go ahead and talk a little bit more about the tours? We mentioned the historic tour that I had been on previously, but you have so many other tours that are by distance and difficulty and the length of time. There are just so many options for the visitor to go and visit this wonder of nature. How many tours are offered for the visitor at Mammoth Cave National Park?
We have mini tours, and it kind of varies by season and how many staff we have of what tours we can offer. But in the middle of the summer, when we're really hopping, we have 17 or 18 different tours typically going at that time. Some are, like you said, they're for all different time frames, because some people come and they only have a short amount of time. They want to come, they want to see the cave, but then they've got to get somewhere else. But others that want to spend the longer periods of time, maybe do multiple tours, go to different parts of the cave, we have it so they can kind of piece those tours together also.
Oh, that's cool. And I know there's so many different things to see in the cave tours themselves. Are there any favorite spots that people have? I mean, you just have some of the coolest names for some of the different spots in the cave. And there's just a couple that come to mind for me. One of them is Fat Man's Misery. That is just so doggone fun. I mean, names like that.
We've been giving tours since 1816. So for many years, people were naming passages based off of what they looked like or what the experience was like. And so we do get to areas like Fat Man's Misery. It's a very narrow section. You have to kind of hunch down a little bit. It's very narrow. You have to squeeze through. And it's quite a walk to get through it. The rocks through that section are very well polished from people sliding in and out of that area. And then at the end of Fat Man's Misery, of course, you get Tall Man's Misery.
That's right.
Then you have to duck walk.
That's right.
To get through another section. Those are always very well known. We have other areas, an area called Giant's Coffin.
Yep.
It's a very large rock formation that in the right angle, it kind of looks like a coffin. And a lot of those early tours, that's what they were. It was, look at that rock, it looks like a coffin. Look at that formation, it looks like a bear standing on a rock. And so a lot of things still have those names and those associations with them left over from those early tours, even from the 1800s.
Yeah, that is just so cool with all the names. It's just, they're so unique and they're just so fun. I do remember Giant's Coffin. When we were in there, we had some friends with us as well. Their daughter was a little bit nervous about that when they were talking about Giant's Coffin.
Some of the kids look at a little bit at the side eye whenever we mention that it's called Giant's Coffin. But then they get over it as you walk behind it and see it is just a big rock.
Yeah, that's right. That's one of those times they just want to get a little bit further away. Like, is it really that? You know, I mean, just how the curiosity comes in. And another memory from the historic tour, you walk out of the visitor center and then you walk into this beautiful forest. And then you go down into the cave itself and you feel that air and it gets pretty cool. What is the temperature in the cave system?
The average temperature in the cave is about 64 degrees. Near the entrances, though, you can get a fluctuation a little bit, and that's because air is either being sucked in the wintertime or it comes out in the summertime. So in the summer, probably when you guys were there, as you were walking down, you kind of turn a bend to go into the historic entrance, and you get hit by a wall of cold, cool cave air.
Exactly.
The humidity in Kentucky, it can be very enjoyable to walk around that corner and hit that cave air because it's nice and cool in the cave. But in the wintertime, it is also nice and comfortable in the cave. 54 degrees isn't bad to walk around.
No, not at all.
Whenever it's 30-some degrees on the surface. So it's kind of a good place to visit year-round.
Another cool spot, and I forget the name of it, you've got a couple of different rooms, but there is one that's just, it's extraordinary. I forget the name. It is a really, really big room, and you get the light on it. It's just like, wow. I mean, I think that's a word that you say is you just stand there and just go, wow, this is so cool. I don't remember the name of that one particular room.
The one room, as you come on in our main historic entrance, as you walk in, you go down a narrow passage, kind of short, and then suddenly the cave opens up. And it's an area called the Rotunda.
That's it. Yep.
It's a big room. It's kind of got a circular formation on the ceiling. It's where 3 different cave passages come together. It's a few acres in size, so it's really large. And it's kind of a good example of why we're called Mammoth Cave. We're not Mammoth because there were no woolly mammoths here. We didn't find any of those in the cave. It's Mammoth because that's how they described the cave. It was mammoth in size. It was huge. And we have a lot of those. We've got the tight little passages to go through, like I was talking about Fat Man's Misery, but we also have these great, big, huge passageways that you could drive a bus in if you had to. Just great, big, and open, and it's really impressive to see what's underground. You don't realize all of that is beneath your feet as you're walking around on the surface.
No, you don't. You don't at all. It is really amazing. And it's probably a great segue. Let's talk about the surface, because it's not just this wonderful cave system. Up above, you've got a treasure in its own right with all the forest, and you talk about the Green River and the trails. There's just so much for the visitor, not just in the caves, but up above as well.
There are. We've got just around the visitor center area right there, we have several miles of trails that lead off in that direction. So that's great if people are in between tours or wanting something to do before or after a tour. They can go in that area. We also have on our north side of the park, we have about 85 miles of trails that are backcountry hiking trails.
Oh, wow.
And they're also equestrian trails. So if you have a horse, you can bring your horse in. We also have a commercial guided horseback riding on our north side that you can go to, and they can take you on a guided trip into the park. We have trails that are bike accessible, which is pretty amazing. We've got some that are trail bike riding on our north side. In addition, on our south side, kind of on our main visitor area, we have what's called the Mammoth Cave Railroad Bike and Hike Trail. And it is a 9-mile trail. It goes from our park entrance all the way to our visitor center. And it's a great trail to see the park. Get out with your family and ride it. It's kind of a gravel-done trail the whole way. And it's an opportunity to get out and get on your bike in the park also.
What a way to see just this beautiful part of Kentucky. When you're out there, you're on the trails, you're on the horseback ride, do you see any unique animal life?
We have lots of mammals and lots of animals in the park. Deer are all over the place. We have lots of deer. We have lots of turkeys and squirrels. But we do have snakes and reptiles also. So you can see just about anything out. We have lots of different birds in the park.
Sure.
So there is a lot to see as you're going around.
So how many people visit Mammoth Cave National Park? We talked about it being so local in a way, accessible to so many. How many people typically visit the park annually?
We get about 500,000 visitors every year to the park. We can track a lot of that because we know how many actually come on the cave tour. So that's a big indication of our number.
Sure.
But we know there are people that come to the park and they just do surface activities like the kayaking and the canoeing and the hiking that aren't necessarily counted in those cave tour numbers.
Is there a best time of year to visit the park?
Most people come in the summer. That's, a popular time to go on vacations. But the shoulder months are very nice. And even there's times in the winter that I think are very nice to go in the cave. Obviously, if you want to go underground, even if there's snow on the ground, you're not going to know that once you're inside the cave. So it can be less busy. You can have more one-on-one interaction with your cave guide in the winter months and in those off seasons when you might get a smaller tour group.
That is such a great idea. Here, I live in Toledo, Ohio, and, come January, February, there's not a lot of things you could see and do, right? So that means we could go down to Mammoth Cave and take a cave tour, and like you said, it's irrelevant what time of year it is. It's all the same down in the caves. That is, all of a sudden, I think I know what we're going to be doing next winter. We're going to be going to, Mammoth Cave. That is so cool.
Yeah, well, we try to post our tours early on for people that are doing their trip planning, and we do recommend making reservations before you come, just to make sure you get the tour you want at the time you want. And that also is helpful. If you've been here before, you can look to see a tour you might not have gone on before and sign up for that one ahead of time whenever you come down.
And that's a great tidbit. Thank you for mentioning that for the folks. Check online, check to see what tours are out there, and you can get reservations beforehand, just like any place else. It'll just make your experience that much better.
Yes.
Awesome. So when somebody comes to visit Mammoth Cave National Park, can you stay inside of the park? Or are there any recommendations for places to stay outside of the park?
Inside the park, there is a lodge. We have a concessionaire that provides lodging and also food service. They have a couple of restaurants in the park as well as gift shop for anybody wanting to buy a souvenir while they're here. So that is called the Lodge at Mammoth Cave. And then just outside of the park, there are several communities that have hotels and restaurants that people can stay in. There's Cave City, Park City, and then further south to us is Bowling Green. And on our east side, kind of a quieter area, there is an area called Brownsville that's also very beautiful to visit. They are off of the interstate, but they still have some beautiful areas, and it's a great place to visit if you want to really experience South Central Kentucky.
Which is gorgeous. South Central Kentucky is absolutely gorgeous. You want to go outside. It really gets you. You want to get out and see the place. It's something else. So, are there any special events held at Mammoth Cave National Park throughout the year?
We do have a few. Some kind of pop up from year to year depending on what's going on. Every year in April, we celebrate National Park Week. That is done nationwide for the national parks to celebrate everything that has to do with the Park Service system. And that is in mid-April of every year. At Mammoth Cave specifically, in the first Sunday in December, we have an event called the Cave Sing. And it is kind of a kickoff to the holiday season. We offer people the ability, they come and gather. We all walk as one big group down into the cave to an area where there is a Christmas tree set up, and we have a choir of some sort singing Christmas carols to the group. And we kind of end it with a sing-along, and it's really a fun thing. They've been going in the cave singing Christmas carols since the 1800s. So this is a tradition that we carry on even today, and it's kind of a really fun way to get the holiday season started.
What a unique way to celebrate Christmas down in the cave. Like that is so cool. I love that. That is so neat.
Fun. Every year when I'm down there, I think this is really cool. All these people getting together, and it ends with candles being lit and everyone holding the candles and singing carols with the choir that's singing. It's pretty neat.
That is really neat. What a way to enjoy the cave system, and at the same time, it's such a wonderful time of year. I mean, that's a win-win all the way around.
It is.
So, Molly, are there ways that people can learn more about the park? Are there any websites, places you can go to learn about the park before you head on a road trip to Mammoth Cave?
Yes, I'd recommend going to our park website. It's www.nps.gov/MACA. That's where you're going to find the best information about the park and specifically about the cave tours that are going to be offered at the time you're planning to visit. And it also provides links to our reservation system. I do highly recommend getting reservations before you get here just to make sure that you get the tour you want. In the summertime, we get very full. We'll sell out of our tours almost every day. And so getting those tickets ahead of time just ensures that you've got a spot to get inside the cave.
Oh, that's great advice. And the National Park Service, they really do a great job on their websites. It really is a great resource that they have set up there. And another question, a visitor center. What kind of visitor center do you have? Are there, let's say, like videos or anything that, somebody coming in to visit that you can learn a little bit more about the park before you actually get on out there and check everything out?
We have a main park visitor center. That's where you would pick up your cave tour ticket and also access and begin most of your tours. It's a really great facility. We've got a museum there that goes into the history of the cave. It covers the geology. It has videos of exploration that has been taking place. So it's a really good start to kind of learn about Mammoth Cave before you get on your tour. It can arm you with some good questions to ask your cave guide as you're on your tour. They, like I said, they do enjoy getting lots of questions in there. But the Visitor Center is a really good resource to start your journey at Mammoth Cave.
So you mentioned questions. Are there any questions that come up, maybe very humorous questions that you've taken over the years?
It's kind of a fun thing of the cave guides to collect questions. We are taking hundreds and hundreds of people through, and so we get some interesting questions. Some are pretty funny. How many miles of the cave is unexplored? We really don't have an answer for that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
how many miles is unexplored? I was once asked if gravity works inside the cave. Gravity does still work inside the cave. We tested it, and we were all still on the ground. So it's funny. We enjoy any of the questions. It keeps it interesting, and the whole group gets to hear it, and we enjoy answering those questions.
I got to admit, I was a little bit delayed on that one. How many miles of the cave are unexplored? I mean, that is such a great question.
Yeah, it's a thinker. It takes you a second to really think, what are they? Oh, I'd have no answer for this.
That's
right. We do our best. We have fun. The cave guides are really interested in the cave. They really enjoy what they do. They enjoy the history and the geology, and they love sharing it. And they do enjoy going down and answering the questions, especially the groups that are involved and want to know more. It makes it a lot more fun whenever you're talking to someone that you could tell really is interested in what you're doing.
Oh, that's great. So, Molly, is there anything else that you'd like to tell people about the park that would have them make it part of their bucket list?
I think, really that this is two parks. Don't think of us just as the cave park. Go do your tour and go home. Look at what else you can do on the surface. Our canoeing and kayaking is really beautiful. We've got great experiences on the Green River and the Nolan River. We've got great hiking opportunities and biking. We also have several campgrounds in the park if you would like to, spend time there and get in the outdoors that way. So just, think of us, we're not just a one-stop shop of cave. We've got lots to offer in this area. And also outside the park. South Central Kentucky is a beautiful area. It's a great place to visit and explore. So, look at some of the surrounding communities and their chambers, see what else there is to do in the area. We welcome everyone to come to Mammoth Cave.
Oh, that is so cool. So, Molly, I'd like to say thank you very much for joining us today. It's been an absolute delight talking to you about Mammoth Cave National Park.
Well, thank you so much for reaching out to learn more about the park. We're happy to share information we have. Like I said in the very beginning, I am really lucky. I work at a great national park. I love my job. It's just a fun place to be.
That is so great. So, it's been way too long since I visited Mammoth Cave, and a return visit is high on my bucket list, and I hope a trip to this amazing place is high on our listeners' bucket list too. I hope one day you get to enter this incredible cave system and feel like you're going on a grand adventure. We'll be publishing this Live in Memory podcast road trip on Twitter, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, and Libsyn. There will also be a downloadable MP3, so folks can learn about Mammoth Cave National Park while on car rides, at work, when working out, whenever you have time to learn about something new. I'd also like to add, if there is a place you would like to learn about or a traveler you would like us to talk to, feel free to drop us a note at Live in Memory on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, or you can also drop us an email at liveinmemory@gmail.com. And please share your pics and posts and stories of wonderful places you visited. Sharing our experiences is a wonderful way to inspire folks to get out and live in memory. Once again, I'd like to say thank you to Molly Schroer, Management Analyst at Mammoth Cave National Park, for being our tour guide in today's Live in Memory podcast road trip.
You are welcome.
Have a great day, everybody. Get on out there and live in memory. See ya. Bye.